if you've been thinking about whether you should start making bots and like what bots actually do, maybe this is really helpful for you. So for me specifically, I have had bots for like a while, meaning that when we were getting trained as to start thinking like using AI in a way where you're not necessarily writing a specific prompt, but it's a repetitive task that you need a bot to go and complete for you. So this can be anything like doing research for you. It might be writing lessons for you, making presentations, etc. And there's a specific structured format that you're looking for. You can actually go and build a bot to go and replicate that format every single time. So specifically, when I am updating my lessons for my courses in every single semester, I'm able to go and update my courses relatively quickly because I already have a template as to what it is that I'm looking for. I know how I want my slides to be sequenced. We know what the topics are because there's a syllabus that we have to follow. And then through there, I'm able to get through every single week that I am delivering the topics at hand, and then I can write my in-class activities at the same time. Now, my activities change every single term dependent on what case I've created for my students. If this is something that might be useful for you, then follow along as to how to go and build a bot in this specific case or use case scenario. This specific bot is created through ChatGPT. You can actually go and do this in multiple platforms. We know that ChatGPT is probably what everyone is currently talking about when they're talking about AI. There's another platform that I also use that's called Poe. You can also create this on Claude. And so many of the AI platforms out there are going to be offering similar features as to how to go and do this. In terms of how to get started on ChatGPT, what you're currently looking at here is at the very end of the lesson that I had just updated for my strategic management class. I have a very specific structure as to like what I want my lessons to be doing. When we're talking about how to get started in creating your own chatbot, you have to firstly have a paid subscription model. If you have a free account, you can access ChatGPT for free, meaning that you can have an account. I think if I'm not mistaken, there's an X amount of token that you can use every single day. And then sort of when that maxes out, then it like tells you like you can't use this until like the next day at whatever time. Like yesterday, a colleague of mine, she was prepping for a class she's going to be teaching in the summer. And she was creating a lot of resources, as we do as profs, for this class. And she was doing a lot of testing to go and see how to build out multiple choices, short answers, and then like start really kind of like diving into creating resources. In terms of like what we're going to go and do, we're going to go and build out a bot for like a generic use of for you to even get started as to what you want this bot to be doing, because this is very similar to prompt engineering. If you've watched the other video talking about how to go and prompt engineer, there are a series of instructions that you need to go and provide in order for your bot to be doing whatever it is that you need it to do. Back to this, like you need to have a paid model. So even the basic, like I think it's like the basic one, that's like $20 US. This is sufficient. Then you need to go into My GPT. And from there, it'll ask you a series of things because this like basically allows for you to go and do whatever it is. And you can see that I have, again, a whole series of bots that I've already created. I test a lot of things out for myself, for different purposes. And so let's do this in terms of we're creating a new GPT. Then from here, I go into configure. And then you can go and name what you want this to do. So this is a test bot, let's call it that. And this is actually this component of like instructions. This is where it's really, really important because this is where, similar to your prompt engineering, you're really assigning a role for it to go and complete the task that you need it to be doing every single time you use this bot, right? So as you might have known, like you saw, like I have a bot that helps me generate ideas for LinkedIn posts in a very specific tone of like somebody who I admire a lot, have a lot of respect for on the internet that really like specializes in LinkedIn. You can do this in terms of writing lessons. You might be able to, you can do this for like a plethora of reasons. So in terms of your instructions, you really do need to go and assign it. There is no, my understanding is that there really isn't like a maximum amount of instructions that you can go and put in. I'm also like quite, direct to the point about what I want it to be doing. You have to assign a role as to what this looks like. And I'll just do this specifically for somebody who teaches for a living. So this is how I get started. To really kind of start off and set the tone, I already tell it that you are a pedagogy expert and you're going to be writing lessons at an MBA level. So it really knows what it's going to be doing. Okay, so then I go into the tone. You will use a friendly, clear tone. You can see that you can actually just make the screen much bigger. I've created 6 points. These are things for me that are very important when I'm sort of telling my bot what to do. One, it needs to understand that it's a pedagogy expert. 2, it needs to know that the level that these lessons that we're going to be writing at, which is at an MBA level. At an MBA level, you're facilitating your students rather than you're drilling in information because they should already understand a lot of these concepts coming from a first degree and work experience, that like you're facilitating the conversations and then you're bringing in the theoretical framework to go and really talk through what needs to be talked about and then having that into in-class activities. So after setting that already, then I'm going to say like what the tone is in terms of like what the lesson is going to be like. So it's going to be friendly and clear. The content needs to be very succinct because ChatGPT has a tendency to just dilly-dally on forever. And then one thing that for me is really important is have direct linkages between these topics. A lot of times what is missing when I like hear other people talk about certain things or like I miss the point is I don't know what the linkages are. Like, why are you telling me about this topic? Why does it matter to me? What do I need to know in order for me to be a better manager? Of course, like it's really important to understand that we have to follow a syllabus, and then we know that there are course learning outcomes that every single prof has to follow, because if not, then they're not going to meet learning outcomes, which is going to be very problematic because then you're not going to go and meet like the program outcome. This is a little bit like we understand that AI hallucinates, so I tell it to not hallucinate. It still will hallucinate, but hopefully it's just going to like tone down the hallucination a little bit. And then there's going to be a knowledge base that is that we're going to be uploading, which is why it says for number 6, always refer to knowledge base. Something that I had forgotten. So, and this is something that like I have had to go and change in terms of my own teaching is that I used to follow something that's called the BOPS method. And because of the nature that AI has created sort of like these instant snack bites overlooked to a topic rather than deep diving, which is what Google does. I now have to go and actually redo the entire method of my lesson planning, which is I now do a problem-based learning instead, meaning that every single topic that we have to go and complete, or like the entirety of what we need to go and lecture that week, it has to be put into a framework of a problem. So what problem are you solving? And how do you find those answers through the framework that I have provided? And then all that becomes an ecosystem of how the lesson is written. And then how do we come to the very end where students actually got a chance to go and 1, hear the problem, have it framed. 2, understand that these topics all have to link with the central problem that has been presented, they need to go and figure out where those resources are in order for them to go and answer the central problem. And then that problem then is going to be parlayed into the in-class activity, where they will have a chance to go and go through worksheets and whatever else in their teams or individually, what those topics are that very week. And then they go and have a walk around. So this is something specific that I do in my classes, because I come from a art background where we do actually go through what everyone else is doing and understand like where we stand amongst everybody else. And then they see sort of like how everyone is approaching the problem. Usually it's like very similar. So you kind of know that like the temperature in the room is that everyone is doing the same thing. If you want to be competitive, then you might have to go and think about this from a different angle, because again, this gives you a sense of like, if a majority of the room is doing the same thing, this is probably an indicator that most people are going to go and do this as a status quo. And so how are you going to go and change this? So at the very end, that it's going to be a reflection component, and then we summarize the entire lesson. So that for me specifically is how I write my lessons. So 7, I'm going to go and say lessons are problem-based learning. So something like that. Like, this isn't perfect, but this does give enough for you to get started. Next thing is, I only use conversation starter if this is for like front facing for a class, like they need a glossary, for example. So if this is, for example, like my management class, like they might need glossary for what is strategic management. What are the course learning outcomes? What are the assignments? Like, and I preload all those things in that students can directly go and ask these questions. I don't necessarily need that for this. Then we get into this idea of like your knowledge base. My understanding is that like once upon a time, you could only load in like 10 things. I don't think that that's true anymore. Your knowledge base, because it's already been stated above in the instructions that you're going to go and provide the syllabus, you're going to provide the course learning outcome. Those are 2 things that you're going to have to give. What I would also load in here are a series of what you think are examples of what your lessons that you want it to look like. So this could be PDFs, this could be PowerPoints, these can be, but mainly this is going to be text-based, because the bot kind of has to like scan things through, and they're not very good at reading images or videos or whatever, right? So most of this has to be, if not all, has to be text-based. And then you have to go and ship. Like, this isn't a silver bullet, but this does give you a place to go and start as to how you want things to be structured, that this is going to be specific to this one thing that you want it to be doing over and over and over and over again. So I have different bots for different courses that I teach. Now, I am not a fan of Canvas. I don't like that Canvas rewrites the entire thing over, and I can't refer back to something that I might have liked because it's been written over. I used to sort of see Canvas as like your history, and something like Google Docs or in like Word. I think you could go back into history as well. The difference is that like it doesn't actually save the additions or like the different timestamps of what things look like. It completely overwrites it. I don't really like that, because I like to be able to go and pick things out that I either wanted to be further developed. I might have tested something and I didn't like it, and so now I want to refer back to something and like do it again or do it differently. So I have A/B testing. So for me personally, I would uncheck Canvas. I don't know if you're going to go and need image creation. Maybe you need that. Maybe it might be useful for you in terms of like building out like worksheet templates. It can do this for you. It might be useful if you are needing some sort of imagery for your slide deck or for your lessons, or if like you can't really think of what that looks like. It might be useful to go and just have this on hand. And then web search. So if you want your bot to be able to go and search the internet for whatever topic it is, like again, if we're talking about strategic management, maybe you need to go and see like what strategy means, right? And so then you can go and reference the different points of how different, textbooks, publishers, institutions define strategy. And then from there, you don't need code interpreter or data analysis unless you do actually need that but for your lesson writing bot, I don't necessarily think that that's necessary. And that basically is it. I don't use this create a new action. And then from there, I've given this like a very generic, frame to go and get you started. Then all you have to do is press create on the top right corner. Then it will ask you things like this. Is it only for me? Is it for anyone? So if you are if you're a course lead, if you're sharing this with other faculty members or other people that you're working with who might be interested in seeing how you prep for a class, then you can go and share the link with other people. And then you can go and have this into the GPT store as well. For me, this is only me. So then we save this and then you can see that it will create the bot. And it really actually is as simple as that. Just remember that if it's only for you, you won't be able to go and share this with other people. They won't be able to go and use it mainly. So that is like the difference between sharing it, like this is a link that can be shared and other people can use it, and versus like that they can't. Every single time when you want to adjust, so like if you want to go and add to this instruction, make sure that whatever instruction that you're adding in here, like if I want to go and do 8, you have to remember to go and update this. It'll say that it's updated. You see that it's been spinning, like updates are pending. So this is really important for you to know that like if you haven't saved it or like updated, then it hasn't been updated. But that's basically it. This is how I make my bots when I need a task to be done repeatedly. I hope that you found this to be useful.